Today we have in store for you 10 times people woke up at their own funeral. We have some rather hilarious picks, such as a case in which a woman confronted the husband that ordered her dead at her own funeral, or the case in which a Serbian man actually thanked the people for attending his own funeral. While many of these stories are funny and silly, get ready for our top 3 because that's where things get really shocking. So here's our number 10. Watson Franklin Mondugio Dorteo. This Peruvian man may seem like your ordinary guy, but he has quite an insane story to tell. He suddenly collapsed after having a root canal operation, and soon after was proclaimed dead by the doctors. At his open casket funeral, however, the guests couldn't help but notice that he was still breathing, as evidence that his chest was rising and falling continuously. Shocked by this display, the family members all rushed towards him to check his pulse. After confirming that he was still alive, they called an ambulance and soon came back after his supposed death. Turns out he wasn't dead after all. He was just heavily sedated after the dental operation. Number 9. Tamisha Beauchamp. Being born with cerebral palsy is not easy, and that's a fact. So you can imagine that Tamisha's life was anything but normal even after her accident. But as soon as this incident made news, people have been wondering to this very day whether the medical team needs to be punished or not. Essentially what happened is, Tamisha collapsed to the ground, and after 30 minutes of CPR, she was proclaimed dead. After her parents were told, she was transported to the morgue, and right as she was about to be embalmed, the doctor realized that her eyes were wide open, and she was still breathing. Do you think that the paramedics should be sanctioned off for their mistake? Let us know in the comments below. Number 8. Muhammad Furqan. This 20-year-old Indian man found himself waking up at his own funeral ceremony, surprising everyone around. The real shocker about this is the fact that he had been in a coma for 3 whole months before officially being proclaimed dead. The reason behind this? The family no longer had the funds to keep him there. It's shocking to see that people would literally discard someone just like that simply because they are not getting paid for it. Luckily, he woke up just in time for his funeral, and he went on to become a father yet again, after he made a full recovery. Number 7. Rudwa Devi. Devi was also proclaimed dead by the paramedics, but what sets her case apart is the fact that not only did she wake up right as they were about to bury her, she also woke up not realizing what was wrong, as if she had woken up from a deep sleep. That's right, she thought that she was just sitting in her bed all along. So she got up and started wandering around the place, scaring everyone around. In an interview, she said that it was the loud screaming and crying that woke her up, which is lucky for her because if she were to wake up a half hour later, she would have been 6 feet under by then. Number 6. Noella Recondo. This story is rather recent, coming to us straight from the wonderful year of 2016. She is a resident of Australia, born and raised here, and as she was coming home, her husband decided he had had enough of her, so he hired a bunch of hitmen to take her out. When the hitmen realized that they were taking out someone's wife, they decided to let her go. Scared, shocked, and utterly appalled by the actions of her husband, she decided to confront him during her own funeral, eventually calling the cops, which resulted him in getting 9 whole years behind the bars. That's what I call payback in style. Kudos to the hitmen too. They did the right thing for once. Number 5. Vuk Parikh. This is a rather humorous case in which a man by the name of Vuk decided to prank everyone around by putting up a death notice in his local newspaper. He sent invites to everyone he knew to participate in his funeral, and as everyone decided to come over, he shocked them by popping out of the casket and welcoming them all to his own funeral. He even ended up thanking them for coming. He served them drinks and it turned into a regular party. Now that's one funeral we wouldn't mind getting invited to either. Number 4. Edison Vukina. This is the story of how a man by the name of Edison went missing for a whopping 3 whole days. While many wouldn't think much about surviving a trial as this, especially since it's a grown man we're talking about over here, the family did see a strangely familiar dead body that was reported a few days ago after his disappearance. Everyone thought it was Edison's body, so they ended up preparing the funeral for him, only for the real Edison to show up too, with a massive drink in his hand, asking everybody what happened and who died. Turns out he was passed out drunk for almost a week on the streets, and he had just returned to get more money from home so he could buy more. What a legend. Number 3. Figiliu Mukamatezyanov. First of all, we are sorry if we butchered her name. We don't mean any disrespect by it if this is the case. With that out of the way, however, her story definitely deserves to be shared around more, as it literally plays out like a bad joke. She suffered a heart attack in 2011, and was declared dead moments afterwards. She was taken to her funeral and woke up mid-sermon. She was so scared by people crying and screaming that she ended up dying for real of another heart attack. This is a funny story and it is tragic without a doubt. Number 2. Yasmin Banu. This is one of the scariest stories on the list, mainly because of how close the woman was to being buried alive. This 40-year-old woman had surgery for a blood clot in her brain, and as she was recovering, she ended up falling into a coma. She was soon proclaimed dead because the hospital didn't have enough beds to keep a comatose patient in it, so she was soon on her way to her funeral. As she was literally being buried alive, however, she started scratching and punching the casket, screaming to be let out. She was saved in moments, luckily. Number 1. Diane Ramarte. This case comes to us from the Philippines, as a 3-year-old toddler was almost buried alive because of a bad call from a doctor. As her parents were getting ready to say their final goodbyes, however, the mother decided to adjust her body a little, and she instantly spotted the fact that the toddler was still moving around. She picked her up and rushed her to the hospital, from which she made a miraculous recovery, as she got a second chance at living her life. The news report of this case went viral soon after, showcasing this rather insane story. What would your reaction be to waking up at your own funeral? Let us know in the comments below. Also, make sure to click on the recommended videos on the left and right of the screen if you want to binge through some more mysterious and shocking content like this. See ya!